Damn, I was in that shit, man. I never had no dope like that before in my life, man. That's the heaviest shit I ever smoked, man. I mean, I smoked a lot of shit before, man. But goddamn, man, that's heavy shit. They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no.
129 people die every day in this country from a drug overdose.
I'm not afraid to take a stand.
Host Holly and various guests discuss the important topics about addiction and recovery. They are not quote-unquote experts, but just real people telling real stories. Any or no addictions are welcome. Recovery Talk starts now.
Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to Recovery Talk Podcast today. My name is Holly and I'm your host. I'm super excited for our guest today. She's incredible. But before I get to that, if you haven't liked us on Facebook, please go ahead and do so you can get any updates for the show. Or if you're interested in sharing your story, you can message me at recoverytalkpodcast@gmail.com. I'm super excited for this interview with Sherry Gaba. She is a licensed psychotherapist and life coach who helps people cope with lifelong addictions. Anything from like substance abuse, shopping, gambling, food, sex, love, codependency, trauma. I mean, depression, anxiety. She does it all. She's amazing. She appeared on VH1's groundbreaking reality TV series, Remember, Celebrity Rehab, 3, 4, and 5. Who can forget Celebrity Rehab? Seriously. She also facilitated life coaching on the show's spin-off series Sober House and Celebrity Rehab Sex Addiction. She recently released a book. It's called The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, Kicking Your Obsession. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well. She has over 15 years of experience. She maintains a private practice in California, and she's developing a TV series about codependency and addiction. She's also the editor of Recovery Today magazine and hosts a Recovery Today series online summit. I love that magazine, Recovery Talk Today. That is so cool. Her website is also sherrygaba.com. It's SHERRYGABA. Sherry Gaba.
Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. I'm glad we get to do this.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to chat. So if you just want to get started and just kind of share with us your background and your work as a therapist.
Holly, it's so great to be here on this podcast. I'm really excited, and I love what you're doing in the world. And just to talk about a little bit of what I do, it started out working in the field of addiction, substance abuse. I worked at the famed Promises, which is a rehab in Malibu, where a lot of celebrities were going and still go. Then I got invited to do Dr. Drew's Celebrity Rehab, which was on VH1 for 4 years. So I did that. And that morphed into doing his sex and love addiction reality show. And during all that time, I wrote a book called The Law of Sobriety, which basically takes people through the laws of attraction, the laws of the universe, to help them get through an addiction. And through, so that's my addiction background. I was married to an alcoholic. I'm in the other 12-step program for the families of addicts. And I would say that my disease really is codependency and love addiction. Substance abuse is part of my story. I don't identify as an alcoholic or addict, but there were times in my life that I abused during my, periods of love addiction and during periods of codependency. My alcoholic ex-husband and I are now divorced, which kind of inspired me to write this book to help other people because I have had multiple marriages, being a love addict, multiple relationships, and really my dream and goal is, or my mission is to, help the trajectory of anybody out there who feels like they need to settle. You never have to settle, to make choices. We all have to make choices that are in our best interest, and sometimes when we have issues and we haven't worked on these issues, we end up making choices that end up, affecting the rest of our lives. So that's my goal. And also being an addiction expert, I work a lot with addicts and alcoholics. I'm a certified recovery coach. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. Often I see a lot of cross-addiction, so they'll give up the substances, and then all of a sudden they're, in a love-addicted relationship. So I find that the two really go together really well.
Mm-hmm. And how do you describe love addiction? And like, what are the signs of that?
So love addiction is a process addiction, or what we would call a lifestyle addiction. So other lifestyle addictions might be binge eating or sex addiction or addiction to exercise or internet or gaming, shopping, food, spending. So those are all lifestyle process addictions. It's not a substance. So it means becoming addicted to a mood-altering activity and behavior, which really, believe it or not, creates almost the identical euphoric states that mood-altering substances, provide. So in other words, even the withdrawal can be the same. Like, when when you don't have your drug of choice and you go in some kind of withdrawal, the same can be when you're not in a relationship. You can have sort of this withdrawal. So the relationship or the love object is really the person's only identity. And then when a breakup occurs, the addictive lover longs for the attachment and the pleasurable feelings of that lost relationship as much as a drug user craves his or her drugs. So it's very similar. And, some of the signs, if you're in a relationship right now and you're wondering, am I in an if I'm in an obsessive love relationship, I'm in a love addicted relationship, am I a relationship addict? Ask yourself, are you over-adapting to what others want? Are you in a situation where you never have any boundaries? Are you in fear of letting go, even though you know that you need to let it go? Are you the kind of person that's really afraid of the unknown, so that if you do end this relationship, you're really afraid of what will happen to you? Do you almost have like this emptiness? Oh my God, if I'm not in this relationship, I'm just going to really literally die. Are you always trying to change others? And are you needing others to feel whole? And are you looking for others for affirmation and acknowledgement and validation and self-worth? Do you fear abandonment? And do you have these withdrawal symptoms? So a lot of times we give up who we are out of fear we'll lose someone or need their approval. So, I was addicted to my ex-husband. I was addicted to getting him sober. I was addicted to him from the minute I met him. It eventually became a calmer relationship, but then once he started to relapse, then the obsession began again. And I really believe codependents and love addicts can be sick, if not sicker sometimes than the alcoholic or the addict.
And where does the obsession stem from?
So a lot of it stems from early trauma. For me, I had early abandonment issues. I was born 3 months early, so I was in an incubator for 2.5 months. So I personally did not get that early bonding or attachment. I was a preemie, and back in the 60s, they felt like, oh God, your mom's going to give you germs. So I really did not meet my mother for 2.5 months. I was literally in an incubator, being fed through my feet, no sucking response, no bottle, no breast. And it really, caused this chronic sort of need for love, the love that I didn't get. And, that energy of that trauma sort of lives in our bodies, So you could be somebody that has other types of trauma. Maybe your parents were addicts or alcoholics and they weren't really available. Maybe you became the surrogate parent in a way, almost a surrogate parent partner sort of thing, because your parents maybe they were single parents, so they kind of looked at you as adult child, so you never really got your needs met. Maybe you were neglected or abused. Maybe one of your parents abandoned you, or both of them abandoned you by their own issues, mental illness, again, abuse, neglect, alcoholism, addiction. And, what happens is there's this panic that sets in. And as an adult, we respond almost like an infant in pain, and we're sort of clinging to another to give us that love that we never got. We're craving the other to make us feel whole. We're sort of that wounded child in our adult relationships rather than being in an adult partnership. So love addiction really comes from not being enough, not having enough. And it's really an unconscious attempt to satisfy that early developmental hunger, that sort of like the hungry ghost idea where we need something to fill us. We need somebody to make us feel like we belong. And we're looking outside ourselves to fix this, inner hole, inner fear, pain, and discomfort.
So what are some what's the downside to having the love addiction? Because I know some people they might be confused if they're, if they're clingy, but they're not sure if they have a love addiction or if they're just have those unhealthy codependency behaviors.
Well, the downside is that they're giving up who they are to be with this person. They're so afraid to be alone that they'll do anything. The truth of what they know to be true, that this person may not be right for them, is not as great as their fear of being alone. So, if they're in a relationship where they're being abused or they're being neglected or maybe they're with someone who's a narcissist who doesn't, have any empathy or have any compassion for them, if they don't feel that it's a equal relationship, if they feel like they're doing all the giving and the other person's doing all the taking, I mean, these are really unhealthy patterns and behaviors, and they're probably replicating, how they grew up, and so they don't know any difference. I often find that love addicts, codependents, almost have this feeling of being invisible when they grew up, like nobody really noticed them. They weren't really, they didn't really count. Their needs were not met, and so when they get into these unhealthy relationships, it's almost like they're invisible all over again. And so and all they know really is to give, and that's usually a sign of some kind of codependency when they're doing all the giving and the other person is doing all the taking. And, the most important thing, the downside, is just losing who you are, losing the person that you are because you're so afraid to be alone.
And how do you get through love addiction?
So I think just being on this podcast and listening to this call is the first step. They're making themselves available. They're showing up. They're aware by just listening to us have this conversation. And the next step would be making a decision to change. We all have choices. And so do you want to just, like we say in the program, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Do you still want to, do you want to keep having the same results in your relationships, or do you want to do something different? And that will mean having to make a change. And then a lot of this you'll see is very close to the things that people go through when they do have a substance abuse issue. They're always looking outside for external solutions for their problems when the solutions are really come from the inside. As we say, it's an inside job. It's exploring those fears. I think every codependent love addict usually has some kind of fear underneath their addiction. This is a really important piece, and the same goes for substance abuse, is getting out of the denial. Really kind of looking at what is it that I'm rationalizing? What am I justifying? Why am I making this unhealthy relationship okay? Really look at that early suppressed trauma that I talked about earlier. How did you grow up? Did you get your needs met? Were you loved? Were you nurtured? Did you get that bonding that you needed? Do a lot of self-parenting if you didn't. Really loving that inner child inside of you. Become, that loving parent maybe you didn't get. Become that forgive yourself. Forgive some of the decisions you've made. That was a big thing for me. I had a lot of shame that I had been married multiple times and divorced multiple times. It was really embarrassing. It was really shameful. And I really want to take the shame away from this disease, because the truth is there are reasons that we do what we do. There are reasons that we are love addicts or codependents or drug addicts. Sometimes it's genetic, and sometimes it's from, early neglect. So really having a lot of compassion for yourself and using the pain to grow, and then really to prepare yourself for something healthy. Really start trusting in yourself and just learning how to let go, maybe get some therapy, work with maybe a relationship coach, maybe go to Love Addicts Anonymous, maybe go to Codependent Anonymous. I also have a program called Wake Up Recovery, which is a wonderful tribe of people that are working on all kinds of addictions. It's a membership site. They get live coaching. It's really reasonable, and it's just this beautiful tribe of people, and so people can check that out at Wake Up Recovery. If they just want to do something a little different, or maybe they want to add something to the program they already have.
Yeah, and what are some healthy behaviors that we can practice while dating?
Some healthy behaviors while we're dating? Well,
or maybe some things to keep in mind, like say you struggle with codependency.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to what are your motives? What is it you're trying to do? Are you afraid to be alone? Is there this inability to deal with what you call emptiness? Finding love in other places. Do you need it just from that relationship? Have you really given yourself time to heal from a bad relationship? Are you really ready to jump into the dating game? And then, really being careful with the dating apps. I think that can be really addictive. And if you are a love addict, everything is going to be about the reward system of, oh, he likes me, he picked me, he swiped on me, or he followed me, or whatever the whatever the app is, or the internet dating. So, really look at, have you healed from past relationships? Are you actually absolutely terrorized of being alone? Or are you just looking to add to your life? Are you looking for something healthy, a healthy person to bring into the life that you already have? I mean, do you already have friends and interests and hobbies and work and family, and that you just want to bring someone in that's going to add to your life, not make your life, not be your life?
Yes, exactly. What would you say the biggest piece of advice for someone struggling with codependency right now?
I think pretty much everything that I've said, but just really, look at the fact that is there an obsession going on? Are you people pleasing? Are you doing these things because you're so afraid you're going to lose this person, afraid this person's not going to like you? And of course, codependency can also be not just a love relationship. Someone may be codependent at work. They may not know how to have healthy boundaries at work. They may not know when to stop. They may be workaholics. May never. It's that feeling of not being enough. So they're always doing more, achieving more, being more. Are they enabling? Do they have somebody in their life that they're doing for them what that person needs to do for themselves? Are they a codependent because they have an addict, alcoholic? Are they in that kind of relationship where they're, like what I was doing? I was basically obsessed with getting my then husband sober, and really it became my sickness. Are you getting sick from this enabling behavior, from this obsessive behavior? I started to get shingles, started losing hair, I started to lose friends. I mean, by the time that marriage ended, I was pretty much, on my own because I had made that person my higher power. So, the first thing you want to do is get help, work with, a great therapist, work with a great coach, go to meetings, and, join like a community that I talked about that I have. We have a lot of people that are dealing with codependence in my community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time people don't understand that even healthy behaviors can become unhealthy, especially for people who have that addictive personality and struggle with codependency.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, one of the things that I find all the time, because I do work with a lot of addicts and alcoholics in my practice, in my recovery coaching practice, my therapy practice, there is a lot of cross-addiction. And so, you get rid of one addiction and then suddenly you want to, you pick something else. Is it food? Is it shopping? Is it, like I was mentioning earlier, is it internet? Is it work? Is it love? Are you picking somebody else to get that, endorphin rush? Because it really does work on the brain the same way. The same parts of the brain lights up when you're in love as it does, when you use dope. So, really checking your motives.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And can you tell us a little bit about your book, The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, Kicking Your Obsession?
Thank you first of all, Holly, for giving me this platform to talk about it. I'm very grateful and very appreciative. Mm-hmm. It's on Amazon, or they can go to my website. It's called The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, Kicking Your Obsession. And it's just a fantastic resource for anybody that's struggling with relationship or love addiction or codependency, or or if you know somebody that is. It's got lots of tools, lots of resources. It's almost like a workbook, lots of things that you can do inside the book to help heal. It's a great resource if you are working with a therapist, to be working on some of the chapters, answering some of the questions, bringing those answers into your therapist's office, and kind of work with those. It's a great resource if you are a therapist and you want to provide resources for your clients. So anyway, that's The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, or people can go to my website, which is sherrygaba.com, SherryGaba.com. I have a free love addiction quiz that they can answer questions to see if they're a love addict. And that's a lot of fun, I guess, if you're kind of wondering, do I have this issue? And then check out wakeuprecovery.com. It's basically diving deeper into the laws of attraction and recovery, helping you find purpose. It's really basically life coaching for people in recovery of anything. And working with me not one-on-one, working with me in a group. Coaching can be so expensive, and this is a much more affordable way to get coaching.
That's great. And I think sometimes if you are an addict or an alcoholic, just becoming healthy and whole, I think your book can be helpful just keeping yourself healthy and whole. You know what I mean? Like, even if you're not acting on those codependency behaviors at the moment, kind of just keeping your recovery in check, because I know for me, I can easily start veering off the right road and becoming codependent again.
Oh, for sure. I've always said, Holly, that codependency is a disease just like addiction, and you have to exercise that muscle continually. I mean, I often tell the story of my ex-husband who really what took him out was his codependency before. I mean, it was really that took him out. He had an accident at work because he had no boundaries. He wouldn't say no to what they were asking of him. And he had a huge accident, which, eventually you can only guess. He started on painkillers and then alcohol, and the story goes. And I think we hear this all the time. We think, sure, it was the drugs and alcohol that took him out, but it was the codependency underneath the drugs and alcohol that took him out. And I think that we have to be, I think codependency and fear are two of the hugest things under every addict's psyche. I do, and I think that's something they have to continually work on. I know I have to.
Yes, me too. I always have to work on that. And at first, I didn't realize I was codependent because I wasn't in a relationship with a male.
Yes.
I always had a girlfriend or a best friend, so I didn't understand that was even being codependent, but I always had to have people around or have that kind of connection. So for me, I didn't even understand I was for a while.
That's a really great example, Holly, because I hear that all the time from my clients. They'll say, I have this friend and she's in an abusive relationship and I keep trying to help her and I keep trying to rescue her, and is that codependent? It's like, yeah. Or are you in a relationship, do you have a friend that you're constantly doing things for them and it's not reciprocal? That gets really old, if you're always the one giving. And the one thing to look at is that codependency doesn't mean you're just this amazing good person. There is a benefit. There is a benefit to being a codependent, and that is you don't want any sort of confrontation. You want to please. You want to be liked. You want to be loved. You don't want, any so that's your part. We always are looking at our part. And so, if you're, another thing about codependency I find over and over again is people that are codependent have a lot of anger underneath, because they're constantly doing for everybody else. They forget about themselves, and then eventually they just the anger they just blow. I find that to be many times the case, and they don't even know where the anger is coming from. Well, it's coming from always doing things that you really don't want to do, or doing them because you think you should be doing them, and then you hold in those feelings, and then all it takes is one thing to happen, and then you're kind of going nuts, and it's like, where did that come from? Well, it probably came from holding in a lot of feelings that you hadn't dealt with.
Yes, absolutely. All those feelings that we just pushed down for so long and didn't even know where they were even coming from.
Yeah, yes, for sure. And, a lot of addicts and alcoholics come from their own families of origin that are addicts and alcoholics. So they grow up in that sort of environment, and, they become codependent because they sort of had to rescue their parents, take care of their parents. Nobody was there to take care of them. And so codependency just becomes part of the disease. It really does. I see it over and over again. So, yes, my book is a great resource for anyone, in or out of a relationship. They want to understand a little more about this idea of love addiction, relationship addiction, even romance addiction, being in love with the idea of love instead of actually the person, the whole idea of being romanced. We talk about the romance of opening up the bottle of wine and, shaking the glass a little or moving the glass around. Well, there is a whole addiction to the romance of falling in love. And it is affecting the same, parts of the brain. It's lighting up the same parts of the brain. It's priming the brain, for addiction.
Wow. And what was the name of the book again?
The Marriage and Relationship Junkie, Kicking Your Obsession.
All right, great. Your views on this are very insightful, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate more now, understanding more about the codependency.
Yeah.
It's not so black and white.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Holly. And I'm very easy to reach. Just go to my website, sherrygaba.com, or pick up the book, or check out wakeuprecovery.com, and I'm here to support you. This is my mission in life.
Aw, Sherry, you're so awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
You are so welcome, and keep doing what you're doing, Holly. We have an epidemic out there, and we gotta help people any every which way we can.
Yes, absolutely. Together we all can.
Yeah.
We can do this together.
Mm-hmm. All right. Take care. Thank you, Holly.
Thanks,
okay.
Sherry. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Wow, her insight on codependency and love addiction is just kind of blows my mind. And I know for me at least, I forget that I can become codependent. I'm not always struggling with it, but I have in my life, and at the core of myself, I'm an addict. So I have to keep those things in check. So I'm definitely going to check out her book. That just sounds so cool. And kind of like what I said before, like those healthy behaviors become unhealthy if I'm not watching them. Everything in moderation, right? So I'm definitely going to check out her book. I just need to be reminded of all that stuff, because once I'm healthy and I'm working a program and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, like I said, I veer off on that right path, and I'm all of a sudden life's unmanageable again. And even with my boyfriend, I can become codependent again. And I'm like, I want you to come with me and do this, and I want you to come. And I have to remember to watch out for those behaviors and what are the signs. And, kind of what she's talking about in her book, looking, it's kind of like a worksheet where, you can work with a counselor. And at the core of me, there is a lot of things to be dealt with. And I've dealt with a lot of those things, but I need to be vigilant. And I want to have a happy and healthy life. So I'm definitely going to check out that book and just kind of, continue on this path of recovery and stay on the right side and stay on the correct path. Because just because I'm not using or drinking or, acting out on any addictions or shopping, or I'm not, acting on those codependency issues today, doesn't mean they slither back into my life before I even can see them. They're like little snakes. They slither in the grass, and it's like, oh, hey, don't forget you struggle with this, and since you haven't been really doing anything about it, it's coming back. So anyways, for the reading today, it's from the book Each Day a New Beginning, and I read this book a lot, the daily meditation book, especially for this podcast, and it's actually for codependency, so that's kind of cool. So the reading, I'll start. Success can only be measured in terms of distance traveled. We are forever moving one experience to another, one challenge to another, one relationship to another. Our ability to handle confidently all encounters is a gift of the program, and the one that accompanies us throughout every day, providing we humbly express gratitude for it. Success is ours when we are grateful. We are not standing still. No matter how uneventful our lives may seem, we are traveling toward our destiny. All the thrills and tears, joys and sorrows are contributing to the success of our trip. Every day, every step, we are succeeding. We can reflect on yesterday, better yet on last week or even last year. What were our problems? It's doubtful we can even remember them. We have put distance between them and us. They were handled in some manner. When we have succeeded in getting free of them, we have succeeded in moving beyond them. How far we have come, and we will keep right on traveling forward. As long as we rely on the program, we are assured of success. I can do whatever I need to do today with success when I humbly accept the program's gifts. Well, that's a great reading. I like it that it mentioned that no matter how uneventful our lives may seem, we are still traveling towards our destiny, and with thrills and tears. Yes, exactly. We're always still moving forward, no matter if it seems like, nothing really is going on. We're still always moving, hopefully, in the right direction. And my one-liner or my joke for today is, I got a part in a movie called Cocaine. I only have one line. I'm over here shaking my head like, come on, one line. Nice. Well, thank you so much for listening to Recovery Talk Podcast. Again, my name is Holly. If you have any questions or anything, or want to submit your story, my email is recoverytalkpodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And thank you again for listening. Your support means everything. And I think it's so important that we try to get some of those recovery stories out there and some of that insight. So it was great having Sherry on today. Her insight was incredible. And I just want to thank everyone for the support. And once again, we'll have a new episode out the first of the month. Thanks for listening.